Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. This week we're going to work on typography. Last week I had already published the typography discussion part of the module. So you were supposed to watch this video here and then go over the websites here. And then I had 5 questions here for you to answer. You still have time to work on those. Even so, I have, like I mentioned before, I have the due date on there, but I don't close the assignments. So you can go back and redo them if you need to. So you still have some time to answer these questions, but the answers to these questions are in those websites that I have posted here. Okay, and if you can't find the answer, then you can do a search, but all of the answers should be in some of these websites. Okay, so again, you still have time to work on the discussion board. Okay, so the assignment that we're going to be working on today, you'll have today and next week to work on it if you need to, is about expressive typography. What is expressive typography? Is an art form where text is highly visual, actually where type becomes an image. Letters are not just abstract notions, but carriers of meaning. They are also real physical shapes. Paying attention to those shapes and using them as visual elements in graphic design is an essential part of the art of typography. There is no single style associated with this approach to type. It's a matter of seeing the graphic elements on the page and arranging them in a way that seems logical and natural for your purpose. It is a designer's job to determine the best way to communicate a certain message. Physically manipulating type is one of the easiest and most obvious ways of adding expression. So just typing text, using different fonts, that gets the message across, but also manipulating the letters, making some bigger than others to call attention to certain letters or the actual word itself that you're trying to convey. It can use font, size, repetition, form, color, contrast, position, and shape to evoke a feeling or send a message. The use of expressive typography allows the creator to break free from typical typography rules to create a narrative while allowing the viewer the freedom to interpret the creator's art in their own way. There are many ways to create expressive typography. The type can be altered to support a concept or attitude. You can use type as lines or shapes. You can use striking contrasts of size, style, position, and direction of type to impart a message. And sometimes the shape and size of the letters have a direct bearing on the meaning of words. Okay. So just think of the way you're creating type as a piece of art and design. Okay, so these are the objectives. The objective of this assignment is to help you understand and experiment with expressive typography techniques using Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, or Photoshop. Through this assignment, you will learn how to use various tools, effects, and design principles to create typographic compositions that convey emotion, context, and visual impact. So you're going to start by researching and collecting examples of expressive typography. Look for designs that effectively communicate emotions, ideas, or themes through creative use of typefaces, layout, colors, and effects. So if you just do a search for expressive typography, help if I spelled it right. And then I'm just going to switch over to images. So there's quite a few examples of expressive typography. So you're going to either pick a word or a phrase or a quote or song lyrics or whatever it may be, and you're going to use typography to create an expression with the type, a feeling with the type, whatever it may be. So you can see the word bounce, it looks like the letters are bouncing. Lazy, somebody snoring. Broken, you have the words broken into pieces. Fight, looks like two boxing gloves. But you can see there's a lot of examples of expressive typography. Okay, so that's the first thing you're going to do. You're going to just do a search and see what's out there. And then from that, we're going to do thumbnails, and then we're going to narrow it down, get it to working on Illustrator. Grading criteria. Your assignment will be assessed based on the following criteria: creativity and originality in the typographic concepts, effective use of techniques such as effects and typography manipulation, effective use of typefaces, layout, color, and other design elements to convey emotions or messages, thoughtful consideration of design choices, and ability to explain the rationale behind them during the critique or when you put them in the discussion board, and overall visual impact and cohesiveness of the final typographic compositions. Okay. And then I posted some other videos for you to watch. Just talks a little bit more about typography, some tips and tricks. This one here is an example of something that you can do with the type. It's the typography illustration. And then some more about typography. So these are just additional videos for you to watch. Okay. So for this assignment, you will be exploring how the expression of meaning of words can be enhanced by letter form and letter spacing alterations, and by incorporating graphic elements within their designs to communicate a visually engaging and creative message. So you can see through some of these examples, you have lines, you have contrast, you have repetition. So you do have some of the graphic design principles and elements in play in all of them, even so it looks like it's just text type or text, but you can still follow some of those principles. You will create a visually engaging and expressive typographic composition using Photoshop or Illustrator, whichever one you're more comfortable in. Illustrator you have more ability to manipulate the individual letters in there and do a little bit more in there than you do Photoshop. But you do have Photoshop, you have you know, the effects where you can distort things as well. I would start in Illustrator, and then if it's not quite working for you, then you can move over to Photoshop and try something in there as well. Your composition should effectively communicate a specific emotion, concept, or message through the arrangement, styling, and manipulation of typography. You are encouraged to experiment with various techniques such as letter spacing, scaling, warping, color, texture, and layout to enhance the overall visual impact of your composition. So you will be creating 5 black and white or color compositions using type, shapes, or photos. So if you want to do something with photos, you're going to go into Photoshop and manipulate that and the image, or I mean the text in there. Again, you can complete it in Illustrator or Photoshop. So first, you're going to make a list of words, phrases, quotes, and song lyrics. So if there's a particular quote that you like, song lyrics that you like, whatever it may be. You can do a list of words. You can, do a combination of all these just till you find something that you want to work on. And from that list, you're going to select 5 to 10 words, phrases, etc. So you may only come up with 5 or 8 or whatever it may be, but the more that you can put down, the better. So you have a starting point. And then you're going to create a minimum of 5 thumbnail sketches for each word or phrase, while exploring how the position, spacing, size, and style that can help the viewer interpret the word, the meaning of the word or the phrase or the quote. Then you're going to select 5 thumbnails that you will then translate onto the computer. And I have paper up here for you if you want to do your thumbnails on paper, if you don't have a sketchbook or a notebook. You're going to create 5 5-inch by 5-inch artboards in Illustrator or Photoshop. And if you do it in Photoshop, it's going to be 150 pixels or DPI. And I'll show you how to set both of those documents up. Okay, consider the following. Carefully consider the words that allow you the most creative exploration. Use only the letters used to spell the word as part of your visual elements. So don't add other words or other letters to it. If, however the word is spelled, use those letters. Consider the space of your square and how the use of negative space and positioning can help with the meaning of the word. So let me see one of these over here. Okay, so something like that. They're using the square, using most of the area of the square, but they're paying attention to the negative space, how things are arranged based on that square that you have. This one here, kind of the same thing. The letters are falling off part of the square. Morning. So pay attention to the overall area that you're designing it. You don't have to stick something in the middle. It can go on one corner. It can, go across all parts of the area that you're designing in. Consider scale, repetition, overlapping, removal, uppercase, lowercase, etc. to create a visual definition of the word. So this elevator one, it's all uppercase, but the V and the A represent the up and down buttons. Here's another version of elevator. So it looks like the elevator is moving up and down. This one, disappear. There's like a transition from, or a feathering at the bottom. The word scissors or scissors. It's cut and created like a pair of scissors. Melt. The letters are melting at the bottom. Who, use the O and turned it into a question mark. Another one for broken. Oops. Okay. You may repeat, omit, slice, block, or overlap the words or letters. Do not use drop shadows or horizontal vertical scaling distortion. Well, you can distort the individual letters to make them look like they're distorted. And then while the type style you choose is important to the message, the manipulation of the letter form should be what conveys the meaning. So you can find fonts that do convey a certain meaning or certain feeling just as the type itself, but you want to go a little bit past that to create something more graphic. looking. So something like that. This one here would just be two different fonts to convey the meaning of thick and thin, but there wasn't much done to it, as opposed to something like balance or empty or any of these other examples. Okay, so you want to do something to the text to give that feeling of whatever the word or the quote may be. Okay, so design considerations. Figure ground the relationship of positive and negative space. So most letters like a G or an O or B's have empty space in the middle of them. So that would be kind of considered the negative space or the empty space. Rhythm and tempo, intervals of space and visual harmony. So again, how are you placing this word or phrase or whatever it may be in that square? Are you using the space to the best design, or are you kind of just, like I said, placing it in the middle and leaving it there? So you want to pay attention to all that. Direction, you can do it vertical, horizontal, or diagonal. Hierarchy, visual importance. So if it's like a phrase, you're doing a phrase or a quote, what's the most important part of that quote? Or what's the most important part of that word that you're trying to convey? So like spiral, the S is the first thing you see, and then it kind of goes down to the last letter, the L. So that's the hierarchy of what you're seeing. Laugh, you see the laugh or the smile in the U. I catch that first, and then the L. So what's going to grab the attention of the viewer first when you're looking at it? Scale, size of type, size of other visual elements. So you're going to want to do some contrast in there. Don't make everything the same size, alter it a little bit. Tracking and kerning, that's the space between the letters. Tracking is space between all of the letters, and kerning is the space in between individual letters. Letting, the space between lines of text. So if you're doing a quote, are you going to have, space between the words horizontally? Or if you're going to do like a larger block of text, make sure that there's some space between the lines of text. Letter form, proportion, weight, and accuracy. That's just basically the letter itself. What font are you using? How is that going to convey the message? You can, use a couple different fonts for the word. You don't have to stick with just one font. You can, combine a couple different fonts to get your meaning across. And then how all of the above properties come together to create meaning. Okay, and then I have some suggested words here that I just found as I was looking through examples of this assignment, that I didn't really see as expressive. Nobody had really done any of these as expressive typography, so they're a little bit different than, the ones that you see here. Okay, so you don't have to use those words. You can come up with other words, but there were just some suggested words that I included there. Okay. So any general questions about this assignment? No? Okay. All right. So you're going to submit your final compositions as the native file, whether it's Photoshop or Illustrator. And then I want a PDF of it as well. And then the JPEG you're going to submit to the discussion board. Okay. So I'll show you how to set up. I'm going to show you how to set up the documents and then how to export them. And then I'm going to work on a couple of them, a couple words or phrases, just to show you kind of how I do it. But I do have, like I said, I have paper up here. If you want to do your thumbnails, sketches first. So that you can write, make a list of words or phrases that you want to do, and then start doing your thumbnails. Okay, so any questions on anything before I start? Okay. All right, so I'm going to go over to Illustrator, and I'm going to create a new document. And in Illustrator, you can create multiple artboards. So we're going to do 5. I'm going to do 5 artboards. And I'm going to make sure that I change my units or measurements to inches. And then they're going to be 5 inches by 5 inches. Okay. And then I'm going to do 5 artboards. You can do more than 5, but the assignment only requires 5 artboards. Okay, so there's your 5 artboards. And let me go over to Photoshop. And I believe that Photoshop has that option now. Yes, they do. Okay. So I'm over in Photoshop now. I'm going to do 5 by 5. And right here next to the orientation is where you can click a button that says artboards. Okay, so you can create multiple artboards in Photoshop now. The resolution is going to be 150. And then I'm going to click create. But where are... I guess it doesn't quite work the same it does in...
No way to do that.
Okay.
You just click on the artboard 1.
Uh-huh.
And it will have like plus sign around the box.
Okay.
Click on it.
Okay. All right, there goes. Okay. So it's not quite like Photoshop. I mean, Illustrator. I would have thought it would have done multiple artboards. Okay, there it goes. All right. So if you click on, use your move tool in Photoshop and then click on the name where it says artboard, you get the plus signs around it. And you can add your artboards that way. So you can add it to the top or the bottom. And then you can reposition them so that they're all next to each other or side by side, however you want to do it. Okay. So you're either use Photoshop or Illustrator. I tend to use Illustrator more for this assignment because I like the way I can manipulate the type a little bit better in there than I can in Photoshop. You can do effects with the type in Photoshop, but that would be more like if you were doing something like let's see. Usually comes up the one I think of, but there's Batman. Oh, here it is, this one here. So if you wanted to do something like this, you would do that in Photoshop, where you could, mask it on there or transform it around the shape. You can do something like that in Illustrator as well with a line drawing. But if you wanted to have more of a photograph feel to it, then you would do something like that in Photoshop. You know, something like that, or something like this. If you wanted to do a composition like that with a photograph and then type, that would probably work better in Photoshop than it would in Illustrator. But these other examples, would be better off if you're just doing words. That would be better off doing it in Illustrator. Okay, but whatever you're more comfortable with, whichever application you're more comfortable with, you can use either one. Okay, and then the other thing I have here is how to do warp text into a custom shape in Illustrator. Illustrator clipping mask, and then the envelope distort, which I'm going to show all of these in Illustrator, and then the Illustrator Pathfinder and divide. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to do those different examples here first, and then I'll start working on something of my own in Illustrator. All right, let me go back over here to Chrome, and I'm gonna find a picture of wood. Okay, so let me find a picture of wood. Okay, so I opened up the image in Illustrator, and then go back over here to the steps. Okay, so you're going to place an image on the page in Illustrator. Using the type tool, type the text that you want to use. So I'm going to take my type tool. I'm going to type the word wood. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to find a font that's kind of thick. Usually I either go with like Arial, black, or impact. But something that has a lot of, excuse me, a lot of weight to it. And then I'm going to make it all caps. And then I'm going to increase the size of it. Okay, so I just increased the size of it. You can increase the size of it over here in the font size, but I just use the transform to resize it. Then you're going to create outlines. Okay, so you're going to go to the type menu, create outlines. So what that did is it changed it from text that you can alter or change with the character panel to it now being a vector image or vector shape. So you can see all the little anchor points there. That's now a vector shape. Select the text with the selection tool and create a compound path by going to Object, Compound Path, and then Make. Bless you. So under the Object menu, Path, no, sorry, Compound Path, and then Make. And then make sure that the text is on top of the image. So I placed the image first, and then I put the text. So that's the layering levels of the shapes or the images on the page. So I'm going to hold down my Shift key and I'm going to select the image. Then I'm going to go under the Object menu, Clipping Mask, and Make. So now the wood image is on the inside of the text. Okay. And let me go get a different image. So let me do sunflower. Okay. So if I go to File, Place, and the place works the same way it does in InDesign. So if you place something in Illustrator, it gives you the option of either clicking once to place it on the page, or you can click and drag to fill your space. Okay, so there's my image. I'm going to take my type tool. I'm going to click anywhere and I'm going to type the word sunflower. And I'll probably use impact again. Change it to all caps. So on your character panel in Illustrator, it looks pretty much the same as it does in InDesign. You have your options down here for all caps, small caps, the different formatting for text. And then I'm going to type in here 200 for my size. Oops, that's kind of big. Do 72. Okay. And then I'm going to position the text where I want the image to come through. So down here at the bottom, go to the Object menu, or sorry, Type, Create Outlines. So now it's a graphic, no longer text. Object, Compound Path, and then Make. And then I'm going to select, the text is already selected. I'm going to hold down my Shift key and select the image. And then go to Object, Clipping Mask, and Make. So now the sunflowers are coming through the word sunflower. Okay, so that's that option that you can do. The next one is envelope distort. So you can draw a shape that you want to use. You can bring in shapes. You can bring in, shapes, or you can create them in Illustrator. So I'm going to go back over to Illustrator. And for this, I'm going to just draw a circle. Okay, so you're going to draw the shape, type the text that you want to use. So I'm just going to type the word circle. But what happened to my? Doesn't have a stroke, that's why I can't see it. Okay. All right, so there's my text, there's my shape. I'm gonna create outlines of the text. So I have my text selected with the arrow. Go to the type menu, create outlines. Go to object, compound path, and make. And then fill the text with color. So whatever color you want to use. Select the shape and go to object, arrange, bring to front. So again, remember in Illustrator, whatever you draw first is farther back. And as you keep drawing or adding things to the page, it goes farther to the front. So think of like pages in a book. So I'm going to select the shape, go to object, arrange, bring to front. And then I'm going to select the object and the text. They don't have to be touching. So I held on my shift key to select both pieces. And then you're going to go to envelope, object, envelope, distort, make with top object. So object, envelope, distort, make with top object. And now the text is in that shape. So you can do something like the Batman logo that I have over here. You can do it with any kind of abstract shape. You can do it with heart, whatever it may be, a car. You can do that technique with that. So let me just do a star. And then type some text. So I'm going to do star. Object or type, create outlines. Object, compound path, make. And then I'll fill it with yellow. And then I want to bring this, make sure that's to the front. So object, arrange, bring to front. Hold down my shift key and select the word star. Object, envelope, distort, make with top object. And then it fitted into that shape. Okay, so whatever shape you draw, you can do that option. And then the third one on here is to use the Pathfinder panel. So I'm going to type my text, create outlines. I'm going to use a paintbrush to draw a line or a shape on the text. Select the type and the line. Go to Window, Pathfinder, and then click on Divide. And then you can use the selection tool to click on the individual shapes and move them around. So that's the basic steps for that. Okay, so I'm going to type the word broken to go with that. Same example. I'm going to create outlines. So type, create outlines. I'm going to take my paintbrush. And you're just going to draw a line through the letters. You can do it through one letter or whatever, but I just drew it through all of the letters. And I'm going to select the type and the line. So hold down my shift key and select both things. Go to Window, Pathfinder. And divide is the first option down at the bottom of your Pathfinder panel. So I'm going to click on that. And if I Command Y shows you just the wireframe version, bless you, of what you're working on. So you can see where the letters are split apart. And then if you use your group selection tool, you can click on those individual pieces that you just split apart. And then you can use your free transform tool, which is E on the keyboard. And you can rotate those pieces. Also, you can ungroup this because right now it's all still grouped together. So if you go under the object menu, ungroup, then you can move the individual pieces around as well. Okay, so let me do one more word with that. So let me do shatter. So type, create outlines. And then I'm going to use the paintbrush tool. And I'm going to go through this a couple times. And then select the type and all of the lines I created. And then click on divide in the Pathfinder. And you can see how many pieces it was cut into. And go back and object, ungroup. And then Command Y again toggles you between preview and outline mode. And you can move those individual pieces around. Okay. So those are the 3 techniques that I have over here. And then this video up here is how to do the envelope distort. Okay, so any question on any of those examples? No? Okay. All right, so again, if you need some paper for thumbnails, I have them up here. But kind of just go through looking at expressive typography examples to kind of get ideas. Let me do typography posters. Okay, so you can do something like that if you're going to do like quotes or song lyrics, something more than just a couple lines of text. Have I shown you how to add fonts from the Adobe site yet? in here? No, okay. All right, let me show you that as well, so you can find other fonts if you want to. So fonts.adobe.com. Okay, so as part of your license with the Adobe here on campus, or if you have a personal account, you have access to all the Adobe fonts as well. So you go to, when you're on that website, so it's fonts.adobe.com, and you go to all fonts. It shows you all of the fonts that are in the Adobe library. And you can type right here where it says sample text. So if you're like do twinkle, twinkle star. Okay. So if I wanted to do something with that phrase, I can type that in there and it will show me what those words look like with all of the different fonts that are in the Adobe font library. Over here on the left-hand side, there are tags where you can filter out, have just different specific styles. So if you're looking for something that's more like a brush or script, you can click on that. If you're looking for something rounded, geometric, whatever it may be, you can filter out those particular fonts that just have that style to them. And then once you find a font that you like, there's a button right here that says add family. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is you'll see a number there that says 14 fonts. That has to do with how many styles are associated with that particular font. So it'll have like bold, italic, condensed, extended, whatever it may be that particular font has. It has a lot of different styles associated with it. Okay. So this one has 22. So if I click on that just so that you can see, it shows you all of the different styles that are associated with that particular font. Okay. And then there's a button right here that says add family. Once you click on that button, this dialog box is going to come up and tell you that the fonts have been added to the Adobe apps. The font is now available in all of the Adobe apps, whether it's Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Dreamweaver, whatever Adobe app you're using. When you log in at home, or if you're doing this at home and you have your own account, it'll show up on your home computer as well. Okay, so it's telling you that it's been added. You can click OK. And then if I go back over to Illustrator, and I go to one of my artboards, go to my type tool, and let me do Apple. And then I come over here to my character panel and I look on the list and it was, the name of the font was Quasimodo. So it should show up in the list. Hopefully. There it is. Yeah, okay. So it's in my list. And you can see those are all the styles that are associated with that particular font. So you can add as many fonts as you want. It's not going to really affect anything. But if you decide later on that you don't like that particular font or don't want to use it anymore, click remove. But just remember, anything that you used that font for in a design and you remove it, all of you, anything that you open up that you use that font with will come up and say the font's missing. So you want to make sure that you're not using it in anything. If you're just trying it out, that's fine. But if you remove it, anything that you used it in will not, it won't be there when you open the file up again. Okay. So I would start here first if you're wanting to use a different font than that's on the computer. Because again, you can use it across all of the programs. It doesn't have to necessarily be installed on the computer. It's based on the cloud. Okay, so any questions? Okay. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start working on a couple things. I'm gonna start with doing something like a quote, a larger block of text, since I showed you already these examples here. All right, so let me come over here. And again, if there's something that you see, an example that you see and you want to try to recreate it, that's fine. If you're trying to figure out how it was created and you can't, let me know and I'll try to help you figure out how it was created. But most of it was probably just done with manipulating the type in some way. Oh, the other thing I wanted to show you too, when you create outlines with your text, so type, create outlines, you can take your direct selection tool and manipulate the individual points of the letters. Okay. So you can manipulate it that way. You don't necessarily have to use one of those techniques that I showed you, but you can manipulate it that way if you want to. Okay. And then just remember the type when you create outlines from it, it's grouped. So if you want to move the individual letters as well, you need to ungroup it. And then you can move the letters separately. Okay. Oh, and one other thing too. If you wanted to do text on a path, so there's two different ways to do it. You can take your pen tool and draw your path. And then take your type tool or go to your type tool and there's type on a path. You're going to click on the line and type. And because the line is small and the text that I have, the font size that I have, you can't see all of the text. So I'm going to do roller coaster, probably typed it too much. And then I'm going to select all of the type. So click anywhere in the text and then Command or Control A. Okay. Okay, so that's just on a basic path. And then if I draw, say any shape, like a star. Go to my type tool. Oops. Type on a path. And then click on the line. It will follow the shape. Okay. There's those two of doing it on a path. And then you can do it inside of the shape as well. Doesn't have all the type tools here. If you change the workspace option from Essentials to Essential Classic, it will give you all of the other tools. As you can see, when I was in Essentials, I only had access to the type tool, type on a path, and vertical type tool. But when I change it to Essentials Classic, I then have my area type tool and all these other type tools available. So I'm going to use the area type tool. And if I click inside the star, I always have that problem. There it goes. Okay. So I clicked on the line of the shape. So now the text is inside of there, inside of the shape, as opposed to going around the outside of the shape. So the smaller you make the type, the more it's going to fit into the shape. So that would have been one of these examples of like that. You can do something like that where you type the text inside of the shape. So drawing the shape and then using your area type tool, you can do something like that. Okay, so, I'm gonna go back over here now and I'm gonna do something with a couple lines of text. Get rid of this one here. Trying to find a small quote. Okay, so I just found, this was Steve Martin said this, a day without sunshine is like, night. So I'm gonna kind of use mostly the text, but then like the word sunshine, I'll probably make a sun. And then the word night, I'll like make a crescent moon or something for to represent that. Okay, so I'm gonna start by creating a sun. So I'm going to use my ellipse tool. Fill that with yellow. And then just use my pen tool. Use my paintbrush, make some rays. All right, so there's my sun. Group that. And then I'll make a moon. Okay, fill that with. And you can do the clipping mask with the text in Photoshop as well. Like the one I did with the wood and then the sunflower. So I opened up this image in Photoshop, and then I'm going to take my type tool and I'm going to type the word sunflower. And I'm going to make it all caps. And then position it where you want it in the image. The image, the text has to be behind the image. So in this case, I have to double click on the background to make it a layer. And then I'm going to drag the sunflower layer below the sunflower text below the sunflower image. I'm going to click on layer 0 or the sunflower image, hold down my option key. And when you hold down your option key, if you hover between the two layers, you'll get an arrow with a square next to it. And that's letting you know that you're going to do a clipping mask. And then you can, the letters will fill with the image behind it. And then you can move the text around. You can reposition the text wherever you want it on the image. Okay, so you can reposition the text. Wherever you want it on the image. So you can do that same thing in Illustrator and Photoshop. Have a good weekend. Bye. Bye. No, just this. Weekend. Weekend. What do we get? Good weekend. Good weekend.
Return these in.
No, those are just for you.
Okay.
Okay,
Have a good weekend.
you too, thank you. Have a good weekend. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
I think we'll just.
Okay, that's good. Have a good weekend. Good weekend. Thank you. Have a good weekend. Have a good weekend.